Alright, so let's start this episode off with a question from one of our audience members.
Hey guys, love the podcast. Just have one quick question. Have y'all ever heard about the Industrial Revolution and the era that created the steam engine and led to the modern day idea of the telephones? Thank you.
Well, let's talk about that. So, Meghan, what are some advancements in new industries that led to new possibilities in production?
So, electricity and petroleum caused a series of innovations that changed society. With the production of cost-effective steel, railroads were expanded and more industrial machines were built. Also, synthetic dye was discovered by English chemist William Henry Perkin in 1856.
What's synthetic dye? Bro, do you really not know?
Stop arguing, ladies. Synthetic dye are manufactured from organic molecules instead of natural products such as flowers, roots, vegetables, insects, minerals, woods, and mollusks.
Alright. Back to the advances.
Okay, so in 1840, Justus von Liebig, a chemistry professor at Gießen, published his Organic Chemistry and Applications to Agriculture and Physiology, which explained the importance of fertilizers and advocated the application of chemicals in agriculture.
You know, it's so wild to think people used to farm all naturally without fertilizers.
Ethan, you've probably never been to a farm in your entire life.
Okay, back to me. Other famous German chemists such as Friedrich Wahler, Robert Bunsen, Leopold Gmelin, August von Hofmann jointly created modern organic chemistry. Soda making was revolutionized by the Belgian Ernest Solvay in the 1860s.
Boring! Is there anything interesting?
Well, Alfred Nobel created dynamite.
Boom!
Another American, John Wesley Hyatt, succeeded in creating the first synthetic plastic in 1869, primarily used for combs, knives, handles, piano keys, and baby rattles. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Thomas Edison and Joseph Swan finally perfected the design of the light bulb in 1879. And last but not least, the first electric railroad appeared in Berlin, Germany. Electric streetcars began to replace horse-drawn carriages in major European cities. In 1901, Guglielmo Marconi sent radio waves across the Atlantic Ocean for the first time.
So Ethan, what were the steps that the state of Germany used to become the industrial rival of Great Britain? How did it help to promote industry within its borders?
In 1871, Prussia finally united Germany.
Prussia? Isn't that just like Russia with a P?
No, Prussia was a German state near the Baltic Sea.
Oh.
Okay, so with that out of the way, that then marked the new phase of Germany's Industrial Revolution. By then, Germany could direct its economy under one direction, and goods finally had a large market. In addition, the provinces of Alsace and Lorraine that Germany took over from France gave them more natural resources needed for industrialization. Heavy industry grew and developed after the German unification.
Very good.
In 1879, steel became a huge industry after a method allowed the use of phosphoric iron in steel making. Weapon manufacturing and shipbuilding followed the steel boom. Germany took over Britain, which was the most industrialized country, and competed with the United States. Germany also became a leader in automobile making. The first cars were made in Germany.
German cars are nice.
Yeah, I wish I had a Mercedes or a BMW.
Factors that led to Germany's boom in the Second Industrial Revolution were its education and government support. Germany had high tariffs against imports and they protected local industries. Education played a key role. For decades, Prussia and German states invested in education.
I guess everyone is starting to see how important it is to be educated.
Yeah, because technical schools provided great minds and inventors. Eventually, by the time the Second Industrial Revolution, Germany had a huge supply of talented and skilled population. German factories were larger and more modern than their British and French counterparts. Alright, so how did advancements in transportation and communication affect trade, migrations, and global interactions?
Well, railroads became faster, safer, and more comfortable during the Second Industrial Revolution, which led to east trade and migration and global interactions.
Imagine having to take a train everywhere.
What about having to ride a horse everywhere?
Well, in 1879, the diesel engine was invented by Rudolf Diesel.
I wonder why it was called the diesel engine.
Oh my gosh.
Clipper ships were invented, and after 1870, more and more ships were starting to be made of steel, which made it possible to build larger ships. Also, the Atlantic Telegraph Company was formed in London in 1856 to construct a commercial telegraph cable across the Atlantic Ocean. Like the early telegraph, the telephone was used mainly for speed business transactions. It was patented in 1876 by Alexander Graham Bell. And last but not least, urbanization increased rapidly. The population moved into quick-built housing and cities to be closer to the factories. Okay, so Ryan, how was life impacted by industrialization, world pollution, overcrowding, poor working conditions, and child labor?
Well, working conditions were awful, due to the large amounts of unemployed workers, making workers in factories easily expendable, and with little leverage for working conditions.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people got limbs chopped off and were killed while working in the factories.
If.
Yeah, also children were forced into labor at a young age and were put into harsh working conditions with almost no sleep.
Maybe school isn't that bad after all.
Different farming techniques led to major pollution issues in the world at this time, like soil exhaustion and soil erosion, and lots of different diseases were spread throughout industrial cities due to the overcrowding and overpopulation of cities during this time period.
Well, thank God for modern-day medicines.
So Ethan, what are the women's suffrage, labor, and public education movements?
Relationships between men and women of the middle class were very different from those in the lower classes.
What do you mean?
Factory workers often resisted the work discipline and pressures imposed by their middle class bosses. They worked long hours in jobs, and in their free time, they did things that were not respected by the middle class, such as going to bars and pubs and staging dog or chicken fights. Also, lower class women worked as house servants. They often had to work long hours in awful jobs and sent some of their wages home to support their families in the country, and some saved dowry money.
Okay, so what about the middle class for women?
Middle class women didn't have to work as hard to support their whole families. They could often rely on their husbands, but they didn't have as many rights compared to men. The 1848 Seneca Falls Convention was very significant as well.
Well, thank God for the women's suffrage movement. I can't cook.
Education also changed at the beginning of the 1800s. Poor children couldn't afford to go to school. Schools were not free in Britain, but then slowly schools became required by law and children had to attend schools. Poorer children could go, and many acts and unions took part in sponsoring and improving the schools in Britain. The country had more school children, which meant more adults to work in better jobs and create better lives for the people in the next generation.
Imagine all the things you could do if you didn't have to go to school.
I could play Fortnite all day.
Society also changed because more people could be better educated and the entire country was becoming more advanced and developed, which led to more products being built and smarter people in the community and its economy. It also changed society because each person can now get a degree in science or math, since the students and the people were well educated at school. And problems like medical issues could be fixed. And last but not least, the labor movement led to efforts to stop child labor, give health benefits, and provide aid to workers who were injured or retired. The labor movement in the United States were a result of the need to protect the common interest of workers. Organized labor unions fought for better wages, reasonable hours, and safer working conditions. Can someone please compare capitalism and socialism?
Yeah, I got it. So socialism originated in Europe in 1830. It advocated government protection of workers from exploitation by property owners and government ownership industries. Capitalism, on the other hand, was a trade industry controlled by private owners for profit, rather than the state.
Whoa. Can you put it in English, please?
Oh my God. Okay, so basically, capitalism is a principle of individual rights. It focuses more on the individual, and socialism is a principle of equality. It focuses more on the equality of society.
Alright, I think I got it.
So capitalism is privately owned and socialism is publicly owned. The government is much more involved in socialism. Also, competition is higher in capitalism.
Okay, so are they even similar?
Well, I mean, they both have freedom of religion, they both institutionalize justice, and both our economic and political power are accessible to all.
Can you discuss the ways that industrialization impacted imperialism in the 19th century?
Yeah, I'd love to. Industrialization created powerful economic connections for countries during the 19th century. It attributed to the growing power and influence of industrialized countries and led to imperialism spreading throughout the world. Industrialization influenced the world of imperialism through the development of both social strife and inequality. The industrialization of the world had a major impact on the dynamic of power, which greatly influenced imperialism. After the Industrial Revolution, the makeup of world powers completely shifted, with the newly industrialized country having power over those unindustrialized.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by the work of child laborers. One child laborer once said, "I began work at the mill in Bradford when I was 9 years old. We began at 6 in the morning and worked until 9 at night. When business was brisk, we began at 5 and worked until 10 in the evening."
Alright, thanks for tuning in this week. Join us next week when we discuss how to survive AP World History. Goodbye.